I am live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Enjoy Phillip Namanworth and the Boogie Woogie Mystic. Before we start, I just want to clarify that we are here celebrating Why I Love Jewish, Why I Love Yiddish Fest, Purim Edition 2021. We are very proud to come to you live from the Betsy Hotel South Beach in the Unusual Gallery, which is featuring the artwork of the great Carlos Betancourt. And there's so much artwork around me, but I had to pick a corner, so I picked the most Purim appropriate corner. Tonight is a very exciting night, but we couldn't bring it to you without our sponsors. So thank you to the Betsy Hotel, the University of Miami Miller Center, and the Feldenkrais Program, the Chenstochover Society, and our newest sponsors, the Mark A. Levin Philanthropic Fund. Thank you, Mark, and John and Amy Israel Pregelman. So we are here. We are live. We're very excited. The gentleman you are about to meet is a very dear friend of mine for a very long time. One of the most talented, one of the most incredible human beings I really have ever known. A great human being and a great heart and a great soul. But most importantly, he is the Boogie Woogie Mystic.
Up singing doo-wop, then I heard some bebop blues, had me totally. Playing the piano, had a lot of questions, music and philosophy. Went to see a rabbi somewhere out in Brooklyn, and the song started coming to me. It's amazing what a little bit of wisdom can do. It's amazing what a little bit of wisdom can do. I'm a boogie woogie mystic, rock and rolling with the rhythm and blues.
Boogie mystic, rock and rolling with the rhythm and blues, ladies and gentlemen. Wait. There you go. Let me stop the share. I told you it was going to be a little strange. I've never done one of these with a PowerPoint before. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Phillip Namanworth, the Boogie Woogie Mystic. Come on, Phil. Come on and join me. Feivel, Shalom Aleichem, mein teure Chav. I love your outfit. I love your glasses. I love your hat. And I love you. Welcome to
Thank you. I love you too, but this is not an outfit. This is how I dress every day.
Well, you know what? I think every day should be Purim.
I agree. That's the point.
Purim is one of the most important holidays for so many reasons, at least in my opinion. Because what a great story of triumph. What a great story of the Jewish people triumphing, over evil that wants to destroy us. And then we eat Hamantaschen.
Well, I totally agree. And the sages agree with you too. They say when Mashiach comes, the only holiday that we really still celebrate is Purim.
Is that true? I had no idea.
Well, I don't know. I lie a lot, but I think so.
It's amazing what a little bit of wisdom can do.
And it's also dangerous if you don't follow up. So I'm going to do my best here tonight. So it's so great to be here. I think I know you 30 years now.
Yeah, something like that.
And I was so happy to get the email that we could call each other by our first names last week, that it was just wonderful.
So, Phillip, tell me, how did you become the Boogie Woogie Mystic? I want to know a little bit about your upbringing. I want to know a little bit about where you grew up, how you became Jewish. What was the Judaism in your childhood, and what has it evolved into, and how did you become the Boogie Woogie Mystic?
Well, let me just say on one foot, I'm as surprised as anybody else. I grew up in a family that was I don't know if you'd say, yeah, culturally, my great-grandmother lived in a house. There were 22 members of my family in 2 buildings in the Bronx. And privacy was a word I didn't discover until I was 23. So we lived all together. My great-grandmother was from Krakow, and she spoke Yiddish and Polish and Russian and no English. And the rest of it was like that. We kept the holidays, but there was the 8-minute Seder and et cetera. Many people had that kind of upbringing. I think the main event of that childhood was at the age of 10, my father died and left my mother with 6 children. Mm. And I think just developing that way had a big effect on my upbringing. But you asked such a deep question that all I remember is I liked going to Hebrew school. I was one of the 8 people in America who liked going to Hebrew at that school at that time. And, but I said, couldn't we keep kosher? I didn't even know what it was, but nobody around me was doing anything. So I think I started off with a spiritual bent.
That's so interesting. Because for me, I never went to Hebrew school. I went to Yiddish school.
Right.
And so when I was growing up, it was still the last of the Yiddish schools, but apparently you grew up already in the Hebrew school momentum that had taken over as the Yiddish schools were closing, the Hebrew schools were opening. So did you have Yiddish at home at all?
No, I think what happened is, and when you say Yiddish to me, I always feel something warm. Right. When you say Hebrew school, it's going to get me out of here. So it was a bad transition there. I mean, we didn't go to, you're looking for warmth. You're a kid. I just lost my father. I remember I was 10 years old and my mother requested that I go say Kaddish. So we used to have to go across the Grand Concourse with my 7-year-old brother and stand in this terrifying room with these old men praying. And we didn't know anything. And my dad had just died. So my early memories were very Kafkaesque.
Right. But when did you discover music?
About 12 or 13. There was lots of music in my house. My mother went back to work as a teacher because she spoke Spanish and sang in theater in college. She went to college and she sang and knew the words to every song ever written between 1920 to 1950s and then 60s later. And then my sister went to music and art and she played piano in the house and I heard every kind of music. And I heard doo-wop and then I went crazy.
Wow.
Original doo-wop. I said, what is that? And I started singing on street corners when I was 13.
Wow. With a doo-wop band or solo?
No, just kids. But when I went to DeWitt Clinton High School, there was a lot of music there.
Right.
And one of the guys in one of my classes sang with a group from Taft High School, and their second tenor had dropped out. And he said, why don't you come join us?
Wow.
I said, okay, I'm 14 years old. What do I know? And the lead singer of that group was a guy named Chuck Negron, who turned out to be one of the guys in Three Dog Night.
Wow. Oh my God.
And we're still in touch.
Really? That's so amazing.
I remember going down to the YMHA and when they met me and I started arranging songs right away because I could hear all the parts in my head.
Right.
Like that. And then.
So did you have a formal music education?
Very little. I had 3 years of piano lessons and I didn't like them.
Yeah, well, me too.
It's hurt me ever since. But like I say to people, I would really like to learn to piano now that I've been making a living at it and working at it for 56 or 60 years.
But listening to you play, Phillip, you play like you've studied all your life.
Well, I've studied music, and you do study. Study is being, what do you say when study? Like you Yiddishkeit study. It's not, it's the books and everything, but it's being aware of what's happening in the moment. Right. And how to get out of your own way to allow the music in so you can absorb it.
Right. But when it comes to actually playing an instrument.
I sat there for hours and hours.
So you played, you studied, but you studied on your own.
Yeah, but I had 5 brothers and sisters in the house. So when I played, there was a lot going on. Plus one of my brothers was playing mellophone and another was playing drums and my mother was singing.
Right.
And my mother would say to me while I was learning songs, she'd go, what are you playing that? That's the wrong harmony. And she would go, it's ba da da da. Don't you hear it? She would yell at me.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
very
So I'm fascinated by the combining of your Jewishness, your Yiddishkeit, and your music. When did that start to happen?
honestly, like Rabbi Akiva, I didn't really hear anything that interested me until I was 40.
Wow.
I had been I had been studying Hinduism, Buddhism, esoteric Christianity. I was like Jethro, Yisro in the Torah. I
Right.
studied everything because I was looking, and the Judaism I had heard around me didn't touch me.
Right.
I didn't have any guide or to say, this is the real deal. Here's the warmth. Here's a Shabbos.
Right.
Here's some of the intelligence. Here's your heart and soul is in this. And then a friend of mine who was in a group called Jay and the Americans. I don't know if you remember them. They had
Sure,
16
of course.
records, and
One
I
of
was
the
working
greats.
with him for years. And I would work with him, and then he said, "I want you to see some rabbi." So I'm going to take off my glasses now. I hope my voice
Please.
doesn't change.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, no. So he was a guy who was very taciturn. Most of the years we worked together, and I was always kind of talking spiritual stuff. One day he comes into, we're rehearsing, and he's talking very intricate philosophical stuff. And I said, "What happened to you?" He says, "Well, I'm going to see a rabbi." Now we're talking from an age of sex, drugs, and rock and roll to a guy going to see a rabbi. So he gave me the best. I said, "Why are you?" I don't know. I know you my whole life. And here's what he said, why he got involved. He said, "Because I don't want to be for my own children like someone who tells jokes like an uncle."
Right.
In other words, he wanted to have something to say. And he realized when he started hearing it that there was things to speak to your own children, ways to communicate that were not in the crazy culture.
Right. Right.
And then
Wow.
it was, and then he, at some point when I was 40, he said, "You want to come see the guy?" And I'll tell you why I went. I wasn't looking for anything.
Right.
I went because I felt my intellectual integrity demanded it.
Huh.
In other words, if you grow up in a dysfunctional house and the love there is very strange, all your relationships are going to be strange. So many of us went to therapy, right?
Right.
So I said to myself at some point, should I really base my spiritual life on what happened to me when I was 10 and 11 in Hebrew school with dysfunctional teachers and stuff? You know what I'll do? Because I have integrity, I'll go hear someone who's, when I'm older, and you know, if I like it, I'll light a candle or something. I wanted to be able to say, yes, I did that as an adult.
Right.
Revisiting your life at another time. And I had no intention of anything. And when I was there, this Rabbi Simon Jacobson, what he was speaking about was so deep and so beautiful and had every piece of everything I'd heard everywhere else. I was really PO'd.
Wow. Wow.
Because I said, all of this is my backyard and no one ever told me any of this.
Right. Right. And you know what? This is a fascinating phenomenon. I mean, you're lucky it happened to you relatively young. There are people today all over the world who I think have been going through a similar experience, that they didn't know anything about Judaism. They knew they had a grandmother, a Bubby, and a
Right.
Zaidi, and maybe they cooked some kind of food that smelled good, or they had a bagel on Sunday, or
Right.
they knew that on Christmas you had to eat Chinese food. But
Yes,
they knew they
exactly.
were
I'd
Jewish,
go
but
to a
they
movie
didn't.
in the afternoon.
Right, but they didn't know what it meant to be Jewish.
No,
And now all over the world, people are finding out what it is that they are missing. And now you love, I love, they love
yes.
being Jewish. They love being a Jew. So let me take a moment and introduce our audience to one of my favorite of your songs. It's so much a favorite of mine that in my second show, Too Jewish 2, I had it arranged for 5 pieces and we ended up making it part of the show. But this is your version and I love it. And it's not playing. Why isn't it playing?
I'm not moving my fingers.
Ah,
Everything has a purpose. There is no accident.
Done.
The minute you appeared on this planet, well, I guess that means you were heaven sent. Now in the cosmic blueprint. We're all in the same big band. But about this cosmic blueprint, there's something I want you to understand.
Hey, baby.
I love being a Jew. So stimulating and emotional too. Well, there's so much to learn and there's so much to do. I love being a Jew. I love it, being a Jew. With our books and our traditions and our music too. Now, I like coffee and ice cream. I'm crazy about Elvis and the Beatles. Woo! But when I'm shaking the lulav in the sukkah, I'm telling you, I love being a Jew.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
I'll tell you why I wrote that one.
Go ahead.
You know, Randy Newman wrote I Love LA.
Right.
I know something bigger than LA. It's being a Jew. No one in any of the songs had just come out and said, I love being a Jew. You're trying to kill me all these years, but I love it. I love it. And you know what? I've got what to love.
That's right.
I've got the deepest spiritual connection to my maker, to my friends, to my family, to the world around me. I've got a blueprint for how to live a good life in the midst of the hiddenness, which is what the book of Esther is about, and why God's name is not in it. Because basically we live in a hidden world, and it's up to us wherever we go to bring a warmth and bring out the spark in wherever we are to reveal it without there being revelation of God's name.
Right.
Because that's the way he made the world. He created the world. And when that happens, it brings a light into the world. You see someone's face light up. They go, I didn't know that we believed that. I can really have a different relationship with my wife. I can get along with my kids. Well, if you're lucky, but yeah. So I wanted to say that.
I didn't realize, I mean, I've learned something about you tonight. I thought you had that Jewish connection from a very young age. I didn't realize that it was
all the holidays, but it was
Yeah, I understand. But later in life, at the age of 40, you started to really understand why you loved being a Jew. And so I love that because I've always loved being a Jew, although I went through my own years of trying to run away a little bit from it.
That's part of being Jewish.
Right. That is part of being Jewish. You have to question. And
Moses didn't want to go take care of the people. God says, take the people out. He says, I'm not going.
Right.
He's talking to Mishkin Chinik for 7. I'm not going. Don't tell me. You're going. I'm not. Okay, I'll go.
So in that image that I was showing while we were listening to the song, we saw the cover of your album, Boogie Woogie Mystic, which you can all buy online. You can tell them where to get it. Bandcamp. Go to bandcamp.com, look up Phillip Namanworth, and buy this album because it's unbelievable. But the other image was actually, you told me, I had no idea, one of the greatest cartoonists of all time, Al Hirschfeld. So you have to tell the audience the story of your Hirschfeld. How did you come to get a Hirschfeld?
It's crazy. A lot of this stuff happened in 1985. I had a friend who was playing in cabarets, and I was starting yet another band, and the band, no matter how many bands you have, you got to get everybody there, wait for them to come, pay them this and that. So I saw a cabaret. Oh, you go by yourself, they have the piano there, you play for an hour and you go home and you're in front of the TV with your wife. Oh, I like that. So I was doing that with a friend, and we became friendly, Judy, and she was friends with Nina, Hirschfeld's and Dottie's
daughter. The daughter. Right.
So one day, Hirschfeld and Dottie and another couple were over, and she calls me and she says, we just had dinner up here. Would you like to come over and play a few songs for dessert? So I go over there, She lives a couple of blocks away. I go over there, and it's hello, Al Hirschfeld. Hello, Daddy. Lovely people. And if you've ever read his books, he's smart as a whip and sarcastic as you can get.
Right.
So I play a song called "Me and Jerome" about two down and out people walking in the street talking philosophy, which is one of my crazy boogie songs.
Right.
Me and Jerome down on the corner discussing the philosophy of life, talking about money and how you can get it and how much you need to survive. Jerome,
Me and Julio down by the schoolyard.
except that these guys are drinking out of a paper bottle.
Oh,
He
wow.
says, old money, you can tell it from a mile away. I say, new money, you can smell it. And
Right.
the things people do and say, me and Jerome down on the corner, we ain't had nothing to eat. I say, let's set up a game with 3-card Monte and find some sucker to beat. So I'm playing that song. And Jerome says, philosophically speaking, who you are does not transcend the things you do. All of a sudden, the bums the down and outs are talking Kant and, whatever the philosophers are.
Right.
It's to show you something I learned from Louis L'Amour, the famous writer,
Yes.
Western writer. I read 94 of his 94 books.
Wow.
And the great thing was that you never know who showed up in our West. It could be a poet who could quote Spencer. It could be something. And they would sit around a campfire and you'd find out the guy who was rustling a cow and trying to get some gold here, taught whatever. They were brilliant minds. And it made me think, that's all of us. When you meet a person, you don't know the gold inside them.
Right.
You don't know who they are, where they came from. And they've got that neshama. So anyway, that's 1985. And I go into cabaret. And it's the same time I go back to I find this rabbi. And we're talking about, what are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about Hirschfeld.
Oh, Hirschfeld. So she says, come up one day, and I'm playing in the house, and then they have to leave. And Judy says, he left you something. And he had gone to the doctor that day. And there was all kinds of writing on the front. And on the back, in blue ink, was this picture of me with up down to my hands. He said, he left this for you.
It's incredible. I mean, what an amazing story. It's so Philip, let's take a couple of minutes, because I've known you for a long time, but I really had no idea how much you have done with so many amazing people. So could you give us like a 5-minute rundown of some of the things you've done and some of the people you've worked with? You mentioned, just in passing, you said, well, Jay and the Americans, Three Dog Night. I mean, these are like the greatest bands in American music.
Well, that
Who
was
else did you work with that I don't know about?
What happened was I met a friend of mine, Ben Goldstein, in college, and we started writing songs, and he was very spiritual, and he got me more on that path. And we wrote a children's book called Lewis about a little boy born with red hair and a red beard who walks for president. CBS bought it with a record and a book, and we were two stoned out hippies on tour around the entire nation.
Wow.
With a very straight PR person destroying hotel rooms. And we were on To Tell the Truth and all of that. And then we went on Joe Franklin. We met a woman who had the first all children's theater, Meredith Stein. And she said, I love this stuff. And Ben said, I'll write it into a play. So we had a play called Lewis running for 10 years. Wow. With another children's play called Aloysius I Tickle, with another children's play, which became a record called Guess Again. So for 10 years, and then we met someone through a contact up at Sesame Street who had seen, who was the one actually who helped us get that. And we started writing movies, doing little films for Sesame Street. And then we started writing some songs. And I did the first album for Sesame Street by someone who wasn't employed there. It was called Fair is Fair, because I wanted to talk about things that are not fair to children.
Right.
And then during that time, even before that time, through being completely crazy and running around with no shoes on in 1967 and 1968, I met a dancer named Louis Falco, who, if you look him up, he was a student of Jose Limon, and he was world famous. And a friend of mine introduced us. and he must have seen some talent. And he was doing a program coming up at City Center and Delacorte Theater. And I wrote the music live with my band for a ballet called Caviar at City Center. And Ben and I wrote a political text that I said. So it was all live on stage. The sets were done by Marisol, the artist. And it was, I didn't even know what I was getting into. And there I am at City Center. I'm on the stage. And then, you know, it's just like, I don't even know how anything happened to me. Right. People start to know who you are. And then somehow I wanted to ask Janice Joplin if I could play in her new band. So my friend Ben and I get on a plane and go out to California. My girlfriend at the time sets us up at a friend's house named Joseph Bird, who turns out to be one of the great contemporary composers, who's working on the first synthesizer record ever. He hears me play and he says, "You want to be on the record?"
Oh my God.
So I played piano on the entire record and I conducted, and it was called The American Metaphysical Circus by Joseph Bird and the Field Hippies. I was called a field hippie. And it was with Los Angeles' top drummers, sax, everything. And then after that, you know, just all kinds of things happened. Many years later, he arranged an album for a guy named Ry Cooder. You know Ry Cooder?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I've heard the name.
Famous. He does everything, did all the Cuban music. So he did an album called Jazz.
Right.
1930s jazz. So I get a call from California. He says, you know, I'm doing a live tour and I'd like you to play piano with this band. And I said, okay, who played piano on the record? And he says to me, Earl Father Hines, who's a legend. So I said, no, thanks. As I always do. He calls me back and he says, Phillip, some of the guys in the band are from the West Coast and I need a nervous New York Jew to play piano. Please do this. I did it. It was with one of the great bands of musicians that I ever played with. It's on YouTube, Ry Cooder Soundstage.
Now, you had mentioned to me that you do something called Doo-Wop to Sesame Street to Yiddishkeit.
Oh my gosh. When I met my teacher, I was such a serious student, so to speak, that I just started working with him, whatever he needed. And then I started I have to, if you let me backtrack to where I met him, it's 1985. I'm being there for a year. I'm in cabaret for a year, right?
Right.
I have my first heart attack.
Oy. Right.
I can no longer travel out to Brooklyn so much. And he says, why don't you start a chavrusa? I say, okay. What's that mean?
A chavrusa.
I didn't know the word.
Yes, a group.
I didn't know. He said, you get someone to study with. He said, get a chumash, and that's it. I said, okay, I'll get a chumash. What's that? That's where I was. That's where I was.
Wow.
So because I was sick, I started something at my house with a guy named Josh Aronson, who subsequently was nominated for Academy Award for a documentary on cochlear implants. And all the people who were going to Simon, who were artists and writers and everything, found out that I was having this little meeting in my house and said, can we come to your house?
Wow.
I said, I don't know anything and I have one book. They said, don't worry, you don't have to go to Brooklyn.
Doesn't matter.
2 months later, I had 15 people every week in my house.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Accidental.
Now,
let me just finish the story here.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It was at that time that I started writing all of my neurotic songs, of which a few I sent you. I Worry, I'm Gonna Die, You're Gonna Die, I'm Perfect. All these neurotic songs started coming out of me, complete. And now I'm going to answer a question for you. How did I get these things together? Ever since I started studying with Rabbi Jacobson, he constantly told every person, you're put here for a special reason. Do your mission, write your music, find that thing in your soul. And I stopped looking around for what everybody needed and started taking a chance on what I had.
Right.
And everything developed from that.
Right. Well, and that's the story of Purim. Esther, you know, Queen Esther Amalke, had to do what she had to do.
Oh boy!
You know, in many ways, she sacrificed horribly for the Jewish people.
You've got it right on the head. That's really why it's called the Book of Esther, not the Book of Mordechai.
That's right.
At the whole end of the story, Mordechai could go home. She was still with the beast.
But you know, poor Esther ended up having to stay with the drunk, you know, king.
But listen, what she did, she stopped the Holocaust. at some point when she was growing up, she said, oh, I'm going to be a nice base Rivka girl. I'm going to meet a nice guy. My uncle Mordechai is the head of Sanhedrin. All of a sudden, she's in this role that she has never thought about.
Right. She saved the
And if
Jews.
she weren't,
Yeah.
you and I would not be here.
Right. She saved the Jewish people. No question about it. You worked on Saturday Night Live.
1981. But let me go first. After I played with Ry Cooder, I got a call to play with Roberta Flack. You know who that is?
Yeah.
All right. So I did a 3-month tour with Roberta with
Right.
the Understand, and that was great. It was when the DC-8s were not working. Remember that time when the planes were no good? So we would fly out to a place, play a gig until late at night, and then get up at 6 a.m. because we had to take a plane that wasn't a DC-8.
Right.
I would go right home. When I get off the plane, I'd go to Rockaway to Kenny Vance's house, who I was practicing doo-wop with and working with. And I sang with his group, the Planetones, a number of times. Kenny has a group called the Planetones, and he produced American Hot Wax. He produced The Warriors. We did other movie scores. We did a movie score for Heart of Dixie, the Carolyn Warmer story. I've done 5 or 6 movie scores with him. And all of this came out after the first heart attack. Then in 1992, I had number 2.
Oy. Oy.
And during this time, and now I was working in the jingle field writing.
I actually remember that one because we met
Yes,
in 91 doing
was
Finkel's
during the
Follies
show.
with Five-ish Finkel.
it was during the show.
That's right. I remember that. It was horrible. I remember we were all stunned and shocked. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
But you know what?
Unbelievable.
No family has heart.
And yet, look at what a positive person you are, because the next song we're about to hear is called Everything Will Be All Right.
You get lost, you get found. Can't let that kind of thing get you down.
Why not?
'Cause there's a fundamental rule that everything will be alright. Days are hard, nights are long. Sometimes every single thing you do seems wrong. But it's a fundamental rule that everything will be alright. Well, some folks just drive you insane, and it don't get better when you complain. There's some complicated logic, some cosmic whoop-de-doo. It's the secret of the universe, and if I knew it,
I'd share it with you.
It's just amazing. Tell me, who are these people and why are you there?
That's from a show that I wrote. Well, you know, Avi, you know, we didn't say that we know each other from Finkel's Follies, which I was the lyricist for.
Right.
So I wrote that with Elliot Finkel, who's the gentleman to the left with the white hair.
This one right here.
And we became, not only that, we became friends, and we wrote many songs for Five-ish that he did in public and after on records. Like one of his songs that I love is You're Never Too Late. Because when I met Five-ish, when we did the show, I think he was 69 years old.
That's right.
It had a big effect on me.
Right.
I said, look at this guy, 8 shows a week. He's 69 years old, and he hadn't been renowned at this point.
Not yet.
He got famous after 70. I mean, and he was, I met him because, here's a good story. How did I meet Elliot? Elliot was playing with Sid Caesar at the Village Gate.
That's right. That's right.
I had a friend who's gone now, the comedian David Brenner.
Right, sure.
So David said to me, Phillip, you got to go see Sid Caesar. You got to go see Sid Caesar before he leaves. He's the best. So I go down and I have a history and a practice of always carrying my CD. And there's Elliot playing the piano and Marilyn Sokol, who I knew.
Yep.
In the show. So I say, hi, my name is Phillip Namanworth. I said, I'm a lyricist. I'm a songwriter, but I'm a lyricist, you know, because he's the musician. I give him my CD. I ride uptown with Five-ish and Trudy. I don't know them. They're delightful. They're on the bus. They look like an elderly couple to me. I didn't know who he was or what he did, but he was very friendly, and I got off at 28th Street.
The sweetest, one of the greatest human beings
Oh, my
ever
goodness.
on the planet.
I'd say, Phillip, Phillip. But just the best. An neshama that's unbelievable. So a couple of weeks later, I get a call from Elliot. He says, "Love your CD. Would you like to take a shot at writing some lyrics?" And I said, "Okay." And the first thing I did was I rewrote what's on the top.
Right?
I kept maybe a few lines, but I
Last week on 2nd Avenue, much to my surprise, a giant of a man shoved a lady half his size. A voice yelled, "Cut it out!" Then I noticed it was me. I said, "Better you should learn to treat a lady tenderly. If you want to fight with me, you let's." He was stronger than he looked, and he gave me a zit. You know where?
Yeah.
Not on the top, not on the bottom, but just in the middle. I love that.
Yeah, there was some lines already there, and then I gave him a couple of other things. And I said, if you really want me to write some lyrics for the show, I can only do it if I get to rewrite all the lyrics. I'm not going to take what you have.
Right.
You could decide. I would have been okay with me either way, but I wasn't going to have it be Potchki.
Right.
Some here, some there. And I did, and I proposed. And then when I wanted, I think it was my idea for I Beat Suzanne. I wanted a song for a 50th anniversary. And I don't speak Yiddish, but at that time I did go to the Workman's Circle.
Right.
To study Yiddish.
Yeah.
So you'll notice in the thing, there's like Yiddish and American rhymes together.
I was going to say, one of the most beautiful things about Finkel's Follies, which I was so honored to be a part of and where we got to meet each other, was the way that you and Elliot and Five-ish were able to bring the Yiddish into the English so that it just was so smooth, way ahead of its time. You know, we should bring that show back.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, a year ago in December, before COVID, we actually did a whole Five-ish Finkel tribute at our first festival in New York, which you weren't there. You couldn't get there.
Well, you probably know the teacher I said. His name was Pesach something.
Pesach Fishman.
Yes. And he was
Pesach Fishman. Oh, my God.
I spent hours at the Lincoln Center Library listening to everybody. I read every book on Yiddish, on the theater, on vaudeville, and I spent all my time seeing about rhymes and feelings. And I said, and I had a phrase book, and I came across this phrase, "A beat should sign mit dir." And just like Everything Will Be All Right, where I knew I wanted to write about that, or I love being a Jew. I want to say that. I wanted to say that message. And when I sang it at his memorial, which was supposed to be his concert, I got to do something extraordinary for me. I said, how am I going to sing this song? And I think what I did was I said, all songs are love songs. There's so many, but they write them for young people. Right. I want to tell you what it's really like to have someone in your life for that many years. And I think we accomplished that with A Beat Suzanne.
Right. Well, you know what? Since we're talking about it, we might as well listen to it, because right here, right now, you will hear Five-ish Finkel singing A Beat Suzanne mit dir. But why isn't it playing?
Elliot's playing.
Right.
A Beat Suzanne mit dir means as long as I'm with you. Each day, each month, each year, my dreams still come true. Every hour of love is a precious souvenir and a blessing from above. A Beat Suzanne mit dir. A Beat Suzanne mit dir means as long as I'm with you. To love, to sing, to hear your jokes as though they're new. I give thanks each night that I have you near. and my life feels so right. Abi zu sein mit dir. 50 years, 5 decades, a lifetime. You and me, half a century, an eternity of husband and wife time.
Oh, just gorgeous, gorgeous. Phillip,
Yes, and Elliot's melody is just extraordinary.
just gorgeous. And listen, to me, Finkel's Follies is the most important show that I ever did in my life.
Wow.
And I think you know why.
Yes.
Not because it was the greatest show in the world, and not because
I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let you say it.
well, but because that was the show where I met my wife, Laura.
It was?
Yes. As if you didn't know.
I never heard it. This is
If it hadn't have been for you
Oh,
and
God.
Elliot and Five-ish doing that show, you know, we talked earlier, you said, you know, you don't understand how things happen. I don't understand how things happen. There was a girl in the show, and then she was let go, and she was replaced by Laura Turnbull. And I met Laura. We fell in love within 10 days, and it didn't take much longer. And a year and a half later, we were married. And my family, we've been together ever since, and it changed my life. I used to say to Five-ish, he owes me child support. But I never gave him an invoice.
Oh, you are so sweet. But after studying our tradition for a long time, I know that nothing is by accident.
Right.
And then it says, May Hashem mitzadeh gover konenu. God directs the footsteps of every person.
Right.
Just like in the story of Purim. By the way, do you know how long the story of Purim lasts?
I'm not sure what you mean.
How long is it from the beginning of this? I mean, it's a story, right?
Yes.
How many?
Oh, how long does the whole story last? I don't know. Tell me.
It seems like it's something that kind of happens quickly, you know?
Right, but it's quite a bit.
9 years.
Wow, really?
And that's why I sent you that rap song called Connect the Dots, because when you talk about meeting your wife, if you want to know how you met her, Hashem wants us to connect the dots that brought you there, the turn you made when you got there, and where those dots now lead.
Right. Very nice. Beautiful.
But I want to say something about Abitzu Sign. Part of the reason I wrote that is that I'm married 40 years.
Right.
I'm a very, very lucky person. And love is not just for young people. That's falling in love or madness or whatever it is.
Right.
It's when you meet somebody who's been together, Abitzu Sign, 50 years. It's a Yiddish nachas that you can't understand, and someone has to write about that.
Right. And Five-ish and Trudy were indeed the ultimate couple.
Lovely, sweet Trudy.
I mean, they were together for 70 odd years.
A lovely person.
Yeah. Oh, God bless Trudy. Sollen sie beide haben a lichtigen Gan Eden.
Gan
Let them
Eden.
have a beautiful, beautiful
Gan
garden.
Eden Lamaila.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with Elliot, who's a sweetheart, and Ian of blessed memory, who passed last year.
Yes. Who recently.
A lot of people, I feel like I lost some people who I was just my family with. Five-ish. I don't know. It's just.
It was the worst of times. It was the best of times.
Yeah.
You know, we've lost some amazing people, but we've gained unbelievable accomplishments. And as I was saying earlier to you, I'm stunned by how the world of Judaism has become so popular, so prominent. Yiddish language, Yiddish shows on Netflix, Yiddish movies eligible for Academy Awards, winning awards, Yiddish language, Yiddish culture, Yiddish classes. You know, I started teaching with my mother a Yiddish class just on a lark, Yiddish Fun 01. We now have Yiddish Fun 01, Fun 02, Fun 03. We've had hundreds of students all over the world. And look at what we're doing. We're doing shows and festivals, and it's amazing.
I feel the same way. I'm still writing. Recently, I wrote a song about Shemini Atzeres. No one ever knows what that is.
I was going to say, that's one of the least known holidays.
But when you hear it, it's called Tarry One More Day. It's God's asking the Jewish people, stay one more day after Sukkot for me. It's you and me.
Right.
But do you think maybe that the reason for this is also because it's obvious that what the culture was offering people and the American dream and all that was never really the soul, it was the external part. And people need more meaning and feel. You need to have a feeling for what you're doing, why you're doing here. Without meaning, like Viktor Frankl says, in his book.
Right, the meaning, yeah.
Logotherapy. I mean, if you don't have meaning.
Yeah, man's search for meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, meaning is evident in passing the baton from generation to generation, midor ledor, from dor to dor. One of the things, you and I are already getting a little older, but, I'm watching the younger people. I'm watching the new generations that are discovering Jewish culture, that are discovering the religion, that are discovering the languages, that are discovering the treasures that are, in our treasure chest.
Yes.
And so I want to, before we go, I think it's really important. I want everybody to hear another one of your beautiful numbers. And it's called Every Soul is a Candle. And I found you sent me the picture of you, and I guess you'll tell the audience who this is.
That's my grandson, Dubby, when he was 2.5, before his up, Sharon. He's playing the guitar. He loves the guitar. And I was jamming with him on my right.
Every soul is a candle.
You have to know that in life.
Every soul is a candle of God, sent down to this world, to your special corner of the world, sent down to this world, yeah, to bring some light.
Everybody brings light. Every one of the door brings light.
Every soul has a soul.
Is a candle, baby. Yep.
Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. It was sent by Shlomo, King Shlomo in the Mishlei. Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. The candle of soul of man is the candle of God. Yes.
Right.
And I had 25 pages on that lyric and never got it done because I wanted to say that and I didn't know how. And then one day, finally, the lick came to me, and then everything else fell in place.
Right.
The trick with these things, and then I want to tell you why I called myself the Boogie Woogie Mystic. Because I was trying to say, if someone says, "Who are you?" and I mean, if you could say, "I am what I do," but you're a soul and a body. But if someone says, "How would you describe who you are?" Well, the two things I do are I spend a lot of time teaching and studying Torah, and the other time I spent playing music. So I said, Boogie Woogie Mystic.
Yeah.
And each person should find out where their Boogie Woogie is. And I'll tell you, someone asked me a question at a concert. I was giving a concert and I said, any questions? Because I say all kinds of things. Someone said, yes. He says, I know what Boogie is, but what's Woogie? What's Woogie? So I said, well, that's a really good question. And I think the Kabbalah answers that. In other words, you have to have a bottom line that's steady in your life. And that's your Torah and mitzvahs, and that's your commitment to who you are. And the Woogie is the way you improvise over that basic Judaism.
Right.
And that's what the Woogie is. How
Right.
each person uses their gift to bring music. Music meaning your talent, whatever it is. Doesn't mean arts. Means that you were born with a mission, something only you could do and no one else in this world could ever do or will ever be able to do. And when you find out what that is, you have to do it. You may
Right.
not make a living at it, but you still have to do it in some way.
Everybody's got to find their road. Everybody's got to find their track. Everybody's got to find their way.
I'm glad I
So,
found you.
what's that?
I'm glad I found you.
Absolutely. I love being a
Even
Jew.
though
And
we're
I love
lost.
knowing you. So, Philip, tell us now, what's now? Let's talk about what you're doing now and what you're planning for the future. And I hope that this is only the first of you and me reconnecting
I would
a lot of
anytime.
different levels.
Yes. Right now, actually, I went back to my roots and making a solo jazz piano album because that's how I started out. And before I got involved in this or that, so I'm doing that, and I'm contemplating putting out, maybe trying to create a book of my lyrics and talking about each one and how they came about and where I was in my spiritual life at
Right.
that time and how that journey developed. In other words, take a look at your own journey, but because I don't want to just get out and start teaching Dvar Torahs. That's Judaism is the way we connect to each other, and the way I connect to people, and some because of my gifts, thank God, is through music.
Right.
And I want to tell you something. Someone said to me at a concert. She came to see my concert, and after the concert, she said, "I want to tell you something. I grew up Orthodox, and I just let it go." She said, "But after hearing you, I think I'm going to look at it again.
Hmm.
I'm going to look at my Judaism.
Right.
I'm just putting it in normal words instead of saying, do this, do that, which is not what it's about. It's
Right.
find your soul, connect to it, connect to other people, make the world better."
Right. Yeah, you and I have had many conversations
Yes.
about the nature of Judaism. I grew up in a very different kind of environment. My father was a Holocaust survivor who came out of Auschwitz and said, there can be no God. Under any circumstances, it's unacceptable, and I won't accept it, and he's not welcome in my home if he does exist, but he doesn't. So that was the home I grew up in. But by the same token, he and my mother, as you know, professor of Yiddish at Columbia University for 25 years, they saw the treasure of Yiddishkeit as the culture, which included the Bible and included the Talmud and included all of the commentaries, but not necessarily from a religious perspective, but from a literature perspective, from a cultural perspective, and what we gave to the world. And so, you and I have had a lot of conversations about, we're all on the same, we're on different tracks going to the same place.
Look, it says, we have to love each other.
Right.
It doesn't say except if you vote for someone else. It doesn't say except if you believe someone else. That's why that dictum is so hard. You have to love your fellow Jew and respect him. And if your father, who's one of the Kadoshim who came through that hell, he's got the right to fight with God, get rid of him, argue with him. He's still in his life because he's forgetting him. But he's still in his life. And now for other people to use that kind of thing is not acceptable to me. For someone who is there, they're holy and they got a right.
Right.
They were there. And listen, I learned from my teacher, I'm here, whatever I can share is information.
Right.
Use it however you want. I learned it from some masters. This is your tradition. Do with it what you want, but see what it really says, not what other people
And you know what? I think ultimately it's about the semantics in a way, because you can say the word God and I hear the word love.
Okay.
You say the word God, I hear the word universe. You say the word God, I hear the spintale yid, the little point of a Jew that was so popular in Sholem Aleicham's writing, because it was just love of our people, love of our culture, love of our faith.
But at that time, it was also love of God.
And love of God, sure, absolutely.
You don't have any disagreements except if you're an anti-Semite.
Well, that's a whole other world.
Anti-Semite.
Right.
Semi. No, I think if people should, if we're not talking about this stuff, we just look for the differences.
Right.
Judaism teaches should look for the same.
So I would like to thank you for being a part of this program. And I'm going to finish, I'm going to let everybody out. But before I let you go and go back to your last song for the evening, which is Love for Sure, because to me, that's the greatest message of all, is loving for sure. You want to tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your music? How can they, other than reaching out to me? Everybody, if you want to find Phillip, you can reach out to me. Go to our website and send me
other information. But right now, some of my records, and including one with a lot of neurotic songs, are on something called Bandcamp.com. There's another place called SoundCloud.
Right.
And there's some stuff on YouTube. I've been very bad technologically, I have to tell you, and trying to make that better.
Right.
To make stuff available and to be in discourse with people.
Well, maybe we can help get the word out. Go to bandcamp.com or SoundCloud. Look up Phillip Namanworth, the Boogie Woogie Mystic. And Phillip, I love you so very much. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Can I say something to anybody who tunes in?
Yes.
I'm so glad that you tuned in, that we've met. I can't see you or you see me, but I know that the light always flows both ways. So though I'm here talking to Avi, you are with us, and it's just great to be with you.
Yep. Phillip, thank you so much.
Thank you, Avi.
I love you, man. We'll talk soon.
Sei gesund, Freilichen Purim.
Süßen, Freilichen Purim. Don't get too drunk, all right?
Not too drunk.
All right. And if you want to dress up as Esther, that's fine. I have no problem with that. All right? Beautiful. Thank you, Phillip.
Thank you.
All right.
Beautifully done, Avi.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Amen. Be amen.
Love you. Love you.
Love you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to have my dear friend Phillip Namanworth have a schmooze with me. He's my third. I had Mike Burston, Tova Felcher, and now Phillip Namanworth, and lots of other schmoozes after all of our events. So before I leave you with Phillip's last song, let me just once again remind you, I'm here at the beautiful Betsy Hotel, live in the gallery. Our sponsors are the Betsy and the University of Miami, Miller Center, and Feldenkrais Program, the Chenstochova Society and Relief Agency, the Mark A. Levin Philanthropic Fund, and John and Amy Israel Pregelman. And there are others, but those are our main sponsors. We have an amazing 3 more days. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Who is Queen Mamata? India, South India, Purim in South India with Robert Skloot. Elita, the international singing sensation at 4 o'clock and singing songs from the heart. She's beautiful. We'll have a little Q&A with her after a little schmooze. And then at 8 p.m., we're so proud to bring direct from Israel, Dori Engel in Isaac Bashevis Singer's Gimple Tam in Yiddish with English subtitles, a production of the Nefesh Theater of Israel. At 11 a.m. on Saturday, Es Gesundheit. We're going to learn how to make Humentaschen in Yiddish. And then at 2 o'clock, the Chorny Gergus duo, Efim and Susanna, doing a Purim Spiel live from Moldova in Europe. All right? And then at 8 o'clock on Saturday, Borscht to Broadway, the legacy of 2nd Avenue, 10 magnificent instruments with 4 incredible performers. And then on Sunday, a children's program at 12 noon, my mother's translations of Dr. Seuss and Rudyard Kipling. And we finish with 2 o'clock on Sunday with the Megillah Cycle by Shane Baker's production and the Congress for Jewish Culture, directed and narrated by the great Mike Burston, with some of the greatest Yiddish actors from all over the world. I am very proud to be evil, Haman in that particular reading of the great Itzik Manger's Megillah Lieder. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for being a part of this. Please, if you enjoy what you're watching, go to our website, whyilovejewish.org, and donate whatever you can so we can keep bringing you more and more free programs of the highest quality that we can find. So I will leave you with a great song by the great Phillip Namanworth called Love for Sure. Enjoy. Okay. Oh, no.
Felt something shifting inside me last night, just enough to let in some light. A quiet voice said, I think it's all right. Don't know how it happened and I don't much care. Wherever I was, I'm no longer there. For the first time in a long time, I hear a hopeful refrain. You'll find love for sure now, love for sure now. You'll find love for sure now, love for sure now. The thing about different is it's mostly the same. If nothing changes, nothing will change. Habits and fears don't die easily when you're trying to find that special one and only. Truth is an anchor and dignity's gold. Best kind of compass for young and for older. Every encounter has dimension and weight. Sure, you might get hurt or change your fate. You'll find love for sure now, love for sure now. You'll find love for sure now, love for sure now. Maybe love was looking and just couldn't find me. Made one little turn and a door opened wide. Let someone new into my life. Don't know where it's going, but there's a little more light. Quiet voice says, I think it's all right. You'll find love for sure now, love for sure now. You'll find love for sure now, love for sure now. Find love for sure now, love for sure now.